Right. There you go. Little icon top left-hand corner says it's recording. If anybody does object in due course, let me know. Right, let's get started. Most of you are here, so anybody else who comes is really late, so you can all stare at your watch and point at it when they join us. Good afternoon and welcome to seminar 5 out of 7 that we're running. And this seminar this afternoon is on financial education. My name is Anthony Walker. I'm the Director of Operations of the Share Foundation. I'll get you to introduce yourselves, my two colleagues who are here. Natasha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Natasha. I am the Stepladder coordinator for the programme, so I will be explaining all about the programme to you.
Thank you. And Catherine.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Catherine Caswell, and I'm the major donor fundraising manager at the Share Foundation.
Lovely. Thank you very much. You will be hearing from those two far more later on as we go. In the meantime, Natasha, would you like to start us up with the presentation? And then we'll go through a little bit of housekeeping as well relating to Zoom meetings. Is it on its way? There we go. Lovely. Thank you very much, Natasha. Okay, if we can move on to the next slide, a little bit of housekeeping relating to the meeting this afternoon. We're aiming for a 1-hour seminar. We do our absolute best to keep it to an hour. There will be an opportunity for questions later on. We'll break out into a couple of rooms. But if we do get to the hour and there's still more questions to be asked, then Catherine, Natasha and myself will happily stay in the meeting until we have answered all the questions, or it's 5 o'clock, whichever comes first. So that's that. Microphones, as with these types of meetings, can you please keep your microphone muted to reduce the background noise as far as possible, unless you have a question that you want to ask. And then by all means, unmute yourself. You can also start and stop your video camera. That's on my bottom left of my screen. I'm not sure where it'll be on yours. But if you don't wish to be on screen, then just turn it off. Chat box, you can type a question to myself, to Natasha, to Catherine, or to the group in general. If you have a question that you want to ask, that is one way of asking it, and we will answer those questions at an appropriate time as we go through. If you would like to ask your question in person, you're very welcome to do so by using the reactions button. If you press reactions and you have a raise the hand function, that will put a hand up on the screen so that you then pop to the top of the list that we can see, so that we know somebody's asking a question. If you do that without making a noise, I can only see 4 participants out of the 17, so won't necessarily know that you're wanting to ask a question. There is a leave button, end button. Hopefully you won't need that before the end of the hour, because we will have you absolutely riveted to what we're going to say. And during the presentation, Natasha will be in total control of screen sharing. Okay, that's housekeeping. So topics to be covered this afternoon. I get to do the first bit. Who are the Share Foundation? Types of savings accounts which are available, which we talked about in seminar 1. We'll go into a bit more about background about financial education, and then the Stepladder Plus programme. We'll talk about the 6 steps within the programme itself and what young people and local authorities have to say about the programme. We'll talk about future plans, and then it'll be question time. Sadly, we couldn't afford Richard Dimbleby, so you get me, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so first one of those was the Share Foundation. So for those of you that did seminar 1, I apologize, you will heard this in greater detail than we're going to cover this afternoon. Share Foundation is a registered charity, been operating since 2005, when the initial aim was to raise additional donations for child trust funds that were opened from that point onwards for looked after children. Then in 2012, the charity was awarded the government contract to set up and administer junior ISAs for looked after children. We did that very successfully for 5 years. And then in 2017, the contract was widened to also cover child trust funds, where there is no one in a position of parental responsibility for the child, or no one who the local authority considers suitable to operate the account on behalf of that child. Good news is that our contract was renewed for 4 years very recently, so that will run from April 23 to March 27. And the other good news is that all of our costs as a charity are covered either by the government through the Junior ISA and Child Trust Fund contract, or by a philanthropist. So whatever we do, there is no charge to you as a local authority. Any donations that we raise, 100% of that money goes into the Junior ISAs to the Child Trust Fund accounts. There is nothing taken by the Share Foundation for handling that money. So everything we get goes to their accounts. Okay. So just a brief outline for our Junior ISAs and Child Trust Funds. Both are long-term savings accounts set up by the government and were or are available to all children under 18 in the UK. I say were because the Child Trust Fund scheme closed to new accounts on the 2nd of January 2011 when the Junior ISA scheme took over. Child Trust Funds were a universal benefit. Every account got a minimum of £250. When the scheme closed, Barnardo's, Action for Children and Share Foundation lobbied government and said, you have to do something for looked after children. And the Junior ISA scheme with a £200 contribution for eligible children was started. Good news is anyone can contribute to an account. And as I said earlier, it's important to note that we can only manage Child Trust Fund accounts, which were opened at birth for these people, young people, where the local authority or health trust confirms there is no one or no one suitable in a position of parental responsibility. Any questions so far? No question, no noise, no hands go up. Fantastic. I will pass you over to Catherine, is it, who's taking over now? So thank you very much. I will mute myself and leave it to Catherine and Natasha for now.
Thank you, Anthony. I want to follow on from Anthony's introduction by way of background by talking about 3 of the key priorities that the Share Foundation has for young people when they leave care. The Share Foundation wants to ensure that a young person leaves care at 18 with an amount of money that will make a difference to their futures. So the amount of money in their account as a financial resource. Secondly, we believe that having a pot of money goes only part of the way to ensure a young person can reach their potential in the future. It's also vitally important that young people are equipped with the financial knowledge and the money skills that they need to prepare them for their adult lives. And developing these life skills will enhance the prospects for young people when they leave care. So this is where the financial education comes in. And this is our Stepladder of Achievement Programme, or Stepladder Plus, which is the incentivised version of the Stepladder of Achievement Programme. And Natasha will go through that with you in a couple of minutes. And the final one of the 3 priorities that we have is encouraging a positive attitude for the future. Our Stepladder of Achievement Programme also empowers young people to take control of their finances and be confident about their futures. So young people are given the time, skills, and permission, I guess, to plan what they want to do in the future and are supported on how they can best get to achieve these ambitions. So Gavin Oldham is our chairman, and he talks about attitudinal transformation that the Share Foundation enables young people in care to have. So that's quite a long phrase and it takes me ages to remember that, but we believe that that Stepladder Plus transforms the attitudes and ambitions that young people in care have for their futures and encourages a positive attitude. So that was my brief introduction by way of background to the financial education programme that we offer. And I'd now like to hand over to Natasha Richmond, who will take you through in more detail about the Stepladder of Achievement programme and how it works. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so the Stepladder Plus. So there is a difference between the Stepladder Plus and the Stepladder programme. One is incentivised and one isn't. So the Stepladder Plus, which is what we're going to talk to you about today, I will briefly talk about the incentive-free version as well. So the incentive-free version, very briefly, is from 15 to 25. There are no incentives paid on it, but the financial resource is there, which the programme is exactly the same. So if you have young people who are 18 plus and you think actually they could benefit from doing the programme, but have missed out on the incentives, we would recommend that they do the programme just to get that background knowledge. The Stepladder Plus, which is what we are going to be talking about, is now open due to a very generous donation, which we will talk about a bit later. But we were able to open up the programme to all local authorities across the United Kingdom. And the way we did that was we wrote to Head of Children's Services or their equivalent and let them know that, you know, this is what we were planning on doing. That did get passed down to some people in the local authorities and some it didn't. So we're working hard to kind of get that message out there. The idea is that we can now allow every 15 to 18-year-olds, so it has to be up until their 18th birthday, to come onto the programme if they have been in care consecutively for 1 year. And that consecutively part is quite important. The reason they have to be consecutively in care for 1 year is that's when we get notified from whoever at the local authority is our main contact. They will send a list to the Share Foundation. They will then update our database. If we don't have them on our database, they cannot do the programme. So that is where that consecutive year comes in. Like I said, they have to be aged between 15 and 17, so it's up until their 18th birthday. The other thing that I have asked for local authorities is to make sure that they engage with the young person before they put them onto the Stepladder programme. The reason behind that is, A, the young person has to be aware of what they're signing up to. We have unfortunately had foster carers, social workers, personal advisors signing young people up, and we just can't have that because they are signing the terms and conditions. They are also signing to say they accept the Privacy Data Act, which we need that to be the young person. It's also how we communicate with the young person. So it's really important that they also understand what they're doing. You know, the programme is great, but if the young person doesn't want to do it, then it defeats the object. If they complete all 6 steps, £1,500 will be paid into their Child Trust Fund or Junior ISA account that they have. So just to recap, they have to be aged between 15 and 17 up until their 18th birthday, and they have to have been in care consecutively for 1 year. And it's very, very important that you engage with the young person before they register. And it really is important that they are the ones registering for the programme. To talk about the steps. Okay, so step 1 is literacy. We are working at functioning skills level 3. So this is, I believe, the equivalent of GCSE 1. That's where we're at. And what we're looking to do is to just gently bring them into the programme, get their understanding levels up and see where they are. So the way our programme works is that they will do an assessment at the start, which will assess where they are, and then it will continue them through the programme. If they feel that there are gaps in their knowledge, then it will give them resources to go back and then fill those gaps to then continue on with that step. To give you an idea of what step 1 would involve, it would involve putting sentences into the correct order. So you'd have the start with a capital letter and the end would be with a full stop. So it's just making sure that each sentence would be in the correct order. It would be adding words into sentences, and then it'd be looking at the grammar and making sure that each part is correct. So it's all things like that on step 1. And this is a gentle ease into it. But if they are not working at functioning skills level 3, then they will need that additional support. So it's making sure that if they are not there, that you have something in place. I am here to support them, but I am a stranger to them. So they're not going to know who I am, whereas they're more likely to talk to their foster carer, personal advisors, mentors, virtual schools if you have them. So it's really making sure that you understand who your young person is and do they need that support. Step 2 is numeracy, and you can see the benefit on the screen of how much they get. I should just say at this point that if they complete one step, they will be paid for one step. If they complete all 6 steps, they're paid for all 6 steps. So step 2 is numeracy. What we're doing here is we're using, again, it's functioning skills level 3. So it will be asking them, starting off with, say, a banana costs X, an apple costs Y, you have £1, how much change do you have? So it's just getting them to start thinking about that, because we're now in a society where the computer works out the change for us and don't have to do anything, or we're all tapping away. So it's just getting them to start to think about those things. And also, you know, I think how many of us go through a supermarket and don't bother looking at the receipt, or even if we get offered a receipt, and it's understanding, you know, there may be a discrepancy and you need to be aware of that. So that is just breaking them into that. There won't be algebra or things like that, but it is working at that skills functioning level 3. Step 3 is financial capability. So this is where we're going to start to talk about all the different things a young person 16 plus might be looking at having to consider, whether that is things like, I mean, maybe not rent per se, but, you know, gas, electric, council tax, water, mobile phones, going on holiday, going out, all these different things that start to occur as you start to go through. And then when they're 18 plus, if they are going into independent living, they will need. So it just starts to talk about, if you're earning X and you have a budget of Y, what's the remainder? Where would you be looking to spend that money? Can you save any of that money? So it's just getting them gently to start thinking about all of those things. And as you can see, the money is slowly rising. Step 4 is planning for the future. And this is sometimes where we do tend to lose the young people, because looked after children don't want to talk about themselves. But if they ask me what I'm looking for, I'll always say to them, break it down into 3 paragraphs. Tell me what you're doing now. So if you're in school, if you're doing a training course, if you're in an apprenticeship, if you're employed, even if you're not doing anything, tell me about it, you know, tell me why. Look at then the second paragraph describing what you want to do in the future. So give me an idea, where do you want to go? And there's nothing that's too big or too small, but just show me your pathway to getting there. And then step 3, you can talk about how you hope the money from this program will be able to help support you, whether that is with driving lessons, if you're going off to university, maybe getting those first things that you will need. If you're going into independent living, it can be things like furniture. So it's just thinking about that money and what you can do with it. It's between 250 and 500 words. And I always do the sandwich effect. It will be a positive, these are the revisions that you need. And most of them are things like people text type. So I say to them, you know, just think about your capital letters where they need to be. If they haven't given me a clear pathway to show me how they're going to get there, then I might say, you know, can you explain a little bit more about it? And then it will finish with another positive. I'm always at the end of the phone. If they want to ask me any questions, they can always email me as well. But it's leaving it open for them so that they can actually start to think about this like a covering letter maybe, or something that would go towards their CV. So it's just getting that structure there. Step 5 is financial capability, managing my money. Now, this is an 8-week accredited course done by the Open University. And this is really the nuts and bolts of the financial education for me. So we like them to take 8 weeks to do it. The reason behind that is there will be 2 slides and 2 podcasts per week. The podcasts are about half an hour long. And how they work is they're going to talk to them about savings accounts, current accounts, credit cards, overdrafts, a debit card, loans, all of those types of things, their payslip, national insurance, tax, and all of those things. If you had all of that in a week or a day, you're not really going to retain that information, but actually over the 8 weeks, you will start to retain that. And that's why we like them to take it over the 8 weeks. We do feel that they will gain so much knowledge from this, and this is a real beneficial step. With this one as well, they can add it onto their CV, as they can, you know, some children have added the whole thing on, but this one they do get a little certificate as well, which they can download. Step 6 is securing future education, employment or training. Now, this all depends upon how old they are when they take this step. If they're 15 or 16, the chances are they're going to be doing their GCSEs, and this is a very easy step to pass. If they're 17, then we look to work with them if they've then come out of education and see where they want to go. So this again will come back to where their step 4 plan is, and we'll be looking at how can we help you to achieve those goals? A lot of colleges these days do tester courses, so we'll always recommend tester courses to them, any apprenticeships in their area. And we also work closely with the Care Leavers Covenant. So if we know of any things that we think might be beneficial, we would always come back and speak to you guys and ask you if there's anything that we can help with, that we can support the young person with. Very recently, a young person had been going through the programme and they had an apprenticeship lined up and they just didn't quite get there. But we kept encouraging them, we kept talking to them, and they got there. And we had a lovely email which basically said, thank you very much for giving me the encouragement to keep going. And that's what it's about. It's just being there to try and keep encouraging them, keep pushing them forward. So there are the 6 steps. The 6 steps can all be done online, so they can do it at any time. But again, it's really reiterating, if they do need that extra support, then maybe you might want to include it as part of their PEPs. That's what some local authorities do. Or you might want to have somebody that is helping them along the way. Okay. So some statistics for you. So we have the 2 differences that you can see between Stepladder Plus and the incentive-free version. So how many young people registered? Both are quite high, but you can see then the incentivized steps as to how many are completed in comparison to the unincentivized steps. And this just gives us what we're trying to prove, that incentivized learning really does work. And especially if you have had disengaged children, this can bring them back into education and actually start to get the resources that they need to maybe join mainstream education or to go on and do an apprenticeship or training or employment, whatever suits them best, because we understand that it's not for everybody. Okay, what our young people have had to say about us. I'm just going to let you read this page. I haven't corrected the grammar on it because I think it has to be relatable, but this is what they have said. So I'll leave this for a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to move the slide on because as this is being recorded, you can go back and read this if you haven't had enough time. And then we have worked with the London Borough of Barnet closely, and this is what one of their social workers had to say about the programme as well. I'll leave it up for a minute and then I'll move on because again, it is being recorded, so you can just take a little bit longer to read over it. But essentially it is, you know, they are a great endorsement for us. So okay. Right, I'm going to pass back to Catherine to talk about future plans.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm just going to sort of summarise what Natasha's been saying and talk about the Share Foundation's future plans, specifically in terms of Stepladder Plus, before we go to question time. I think you briefly touched on it, Natasha. We recently received a very generous donation from the British Bankers Association, which has allowed us to open up Stepladder Plus for all young people across all the local authorities in the UK. Not just in the local authorities where we've managed to secure donations from local trusts or local businesses or local individuals, or from the local authority themselves, which is how it had worked in the past. This donation, I've just added a little bit to what I've been saying while Natasha was talking. The donation from the British Bankers Association just goes towards paying the incentivised payments. So the payments are when a young person completes each step. And if they complete each steps, as Natasha said, that's 1,500 that goes into their junior ISA or child trust fund. It goes only to those incentive payments. And just to reiterate what Anthony had said, all the administration and the management and upkeep of the programme is funded elsewhere, as are my salary and Natasha's salary. So that donation is just going towards the young people. And I think 2 slides back, Natasha showed you a slide of how many young people have progressed through the steps when they're being paid for doing it. and we know that incentivization works. So I just wanted to add that. So with this very generous donation, we've been able to offer Stepladder Plus to every eligible young person across the whole of the UK. One of the key reasons for doing this is it will allow a significant number of young people to participate, and therefore the Share Foundation can collect data, anonymised data, on those young people that are taking part. So by carrying out this sort of quantifiable research on these young people, our aim is to prove that Stepladder Plus has a positive, significant and measurable impact on the futures of these young people who have taken part and completed, some steps on the programme. And that in turn means that we aim to prove the case and show the difference that Stepladder Plus makes to the life chances of these young people, specifically in terms of their likelihood of going into future education, employment or training. And this will enable us to go to social investors who we hope will provide funding so that we can continue to offer Stepladder Plus to all eligible young people now and into the future and for the long term, because as more young people sort of turn 15, they are eligible for the programme and they can take part and they can sort of gain from the benefits of the programme. So we really, really want it to continue. That's my bit done. So thank you very much for listening to us. I'm now going to hand back over to Anthony, who will explain how question time will work.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Natasha. Right, we're now going to split into two groups to give you the opportunity to ask whatever questions you would like of Catherine and Natasha. I'll be hovering around as well, so I'll come and join the groups in due course. But please use this opportunity to ask the questions that you have and make the most of this. Right, so give me 2 ticks. I'm now going to split you into 2 rooms. Bear with me. 2 rooms. Don't include co-host. Recreate. Open. There you go. You're on. Okay. So, Catherine, which room do you want to join? Okay, they've gone. Brilliant.
Please. Oh, excellent. Anthony, hello. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
You've got 2
Olivia.
hands up.
Yeah, Olivia's got a question, please.
Hello, yeah, I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. I guess my first was kind of how young people can actually physically register for the programme, and also how many kind of sessions are involved in each of the steps. I was thinking more around the kind of literacy numeracy ones.
Absolutely. Okay, so the registration is a very, very straightforward process. There is a link on our website and we can send that link out that a young person clicks on, and I think Natasha touched on it. It really does need to be the young person themselves that is registering, rather than a foster carer or a social worker or a PA. And so they click on that link and put their name, their date of birth and bits of information, but not onerous information. And then we can register them. We check their eligibility and they are registered, and they can then take part. As I say, it's a very sort of straightforward process.
That's great. And with the sort of literacy and numeracy, and perhaps like the first kind of few steps, how many sessions would be involved for the young person?
I mean, most young people sort of do it in one session, I would say. They are, you can take 20 minutes to do it, up to an hour to do it. The literacy and numeracy are very, very practical questions. So, they are very, very different from the sort of academic literacy and numeracy that a young person may be used to. They're very practical, sort of money orientated, financial orientated, and Anthony may want to join in here, but the key reason to make sure that they do these steps and they pass these steps right at the beginning of the programme is, as a young person progresses, the content gets slightly more detailed, and in order to be able to do, say, step 4, 5 onwards, or 3, 4, 5 onwards, a young person really does need to have, you know, to have a certain level of literacy and numeracy knowledge. So it's not, I would say, you know, it's not, you don't have to sit there like the step 5 and do it over 8 weeks. You can do it in one session. Equally, you know, the programme is so flexible and it's all done online. A young person can say, well, I've got 15 minutes here, I'll start it, and will have made some progress. They then go on and have to do something else, and then they can come back where they started, you know, where they left off, should I say, and continue on that course. As Natasha said, if there's ever any issues with logging on, forgetting passwords, just some of the course content, she and I, we're always available at the end of the phone or on an email to sort of cover any of those areas, not just for the young person, but for their sort of person that they're working with, if they are.
Brilliant, that's really helpful, thank you.
The other thing, just quickly to add as well, is that it is an assessment. If the young person doesn't reach the level of the assessment, then the company we use, which is Skills Forward, puts them into learning mode, so that they can go through more help, so that it will bring them up to the level that is required. Because as Catherine said, without a certain level of literacy and without a certain level of numeracy, then there is very little chance, if you like, of them progressing to step 6 through the step ladder. So it measures how, you know, the levels of literacy, numeracy first, and once they've sorted that out, if needs to, then they would be passed on through the next steps.
And we just had a meeting with the company that do the course content for the first 3 steps, just discussing the resources that are available if a young person is, you know, sort of at level 1 or 2, so before that, you know, the level that is required, and the resources that they are offered to bring them up to the required level is individual specific. So if, you know, it's a very sophisticated program, so I hope I'm going to do it justice when I explain it. If it's clear that there is a specific area that a young person is struggling with, the resource that is given to that young person to support them to reach the level is specific to the area they've found challenging. It's not generic. So you know, that was something that's very important to the course.
You've also got a question from Helena.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave you to it. I'll go and visit the other room, see how they're getting on. So
thank you.
All right, take care.
Okay, cheers, Anthony. Thank you. Helena, yes, please.
So it's given them the opportunity to actually talk about things that they never would have talked about. So it is very much, you know, absolutely, the support can be there, but just making sure they're not doing it for them. Jennifer, I'll come to you first and I'll come to you, Kelly.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, Natasha, there was about when this will end, and there's a possibility that it could be ending at the end of March.
That's
I
correct,
just wondered whether there was a further decision on that, or whether it is at the moment still due to end then.
I mean, this is where I'm at with it. It is the end of March deadline had to be put in because it is only a certain pot of money, and it is still dependent upon how many young people sign up before that end of March deadline. We are hopeful that we can keep it open past that deadline. And what I've said to everybody is, as we're approaching it, you know, if we go beyond that, please send me an email. I will soon be able to update you. It's not a problem, but I don't want to commit to saying yes and then I'm saying no. So the hope is to keep it open past that March deadline, but it is a, you know, a certain pot of money. So that is where unfortunately we're still at. Kelly.
I've now got 2 questions.
Okay,
First one off the back of that, is that it has to be completed by the end of March, or just it has to be registered by the end of March?
Registered by the end of March, yeah. So they have, same rules apply, they have up until their 18th birthday to complete the course.
Okay. And then my other question was, how is step 6 assessed? in terms of securing future education, employment or training? Do they have to have secured something?
Okay, so like I said, this is the one where I'm having a bit of a sticky wicket on it, I have to say. So we are working behind the scenes on this one. It all depends upon their age. It's proving what you're doing now, and securing the future. Well, at 15, 16, they're not going to be securing what they potentially might be doing after GCSEs. Some will hopefully be staying on at school, some might not be. So it's very much looking at where they are at that age. What I'm sort of now asking young people to do is, if they've made any applications, to maybe add that to their step 6 plan. But we, like I said, we are working behind the scenes. As it stands at the moment, it depends on their age. And then they will normally ask me. So that's normally when I get to hear from them. They'll send me an email saying, what do I need to add to my step 6 to pass it? So yeah, and I will then take a look at how old they are, go back to their step 4 plan to see what they're doing, what they're hoping to do, and then I go from there.
Thank you. And it can be done at any point. So it could be done with a foster carer, a social worker. It doesn't matter who is supporting them through the process. It doesn't have to be connected to any specific aspect of their life.
As in?
So if a foster carer was supporting a child, they could just do that in the home in the evenings. It doesn't have to be linked to their education provision.
No,
and similarly, an education provision, if they were doing one-to-one support with a young person, they could pick it up with them in them sessions.
No, and this is where it comes down to, your young people best and the support network that they have around them. So if they have a great foster carer that will support them and not do it for them, then you would probably go with the foster carer. If you know that they don't have that support with the foster carer, they might be living a semi-independent living, then you might bring that into actually when they're having their PEPs or they're having those one-to-one sessions. How you choose to do it with your young people is entirely up to you. The whole course can be done online, and it can be done just by the young person. But we are very much aware that if they're not working at that skills level, it will give them the resources to do. And that's where they might struggle to sort of understand what they've got to do and why they haven't passed the step. Questions?
Stunned silence there.
Stunned silence.
Joanna, you had your hand up earlier. Was your question answered?
Yeah, it was. Thanks.
Brilliant. That's all right. Well, sounds like you're having fun. I will leave you to it. I'll go back to room 1.
Go back to room 1 and see if, hopefully Catherine's
see how they're
answered.
doing. And then at some point, you'll get a 60-second warning that you're going to get dragged back into the main room. So I'll leave you with Natasha for another couple of minutes.
Thank you.
For education into that account. Now, so in order to be eligible, they need a TSF number. The second part of that question, though, was what happens if a young person turns 18 and we haven't found where their account is or anything like that? They will still get the money. We will send a check to an address that the local authority has advised us of is the last known address of that young person. If we, so that's how we'll find them, but they will still be able to get that money, even though they turn 18 and we no longer have access to their account. The money is still theirs. Thank you, Helena. Are there any more questions?
Well, I'll go back and I'll drag everybody back into the main meeting then.
Okay.
There will be an opportunity to continue to ask questions after we close the
I've got
formal
another
meeting.
chat here, Anthony.
Have you? Oh, what's
no,
that?
No, it just says thank you. No problem, Helena.
Oh, there you go. All right, but so we'll carry on as long as we need to. But let's get everybody back together and then just deal with next steps. All right. See you in a minute. We're getting there. We've just got a few to drag back from room 2 now. You're obviously having a good time in room 2. I've got 5 seconds left.
Natasha talks longer than me.
Okay, I think we're all back now. So hopefully the question time proved useful. As I said earlier, Catherine, Natasha and I are quite happy to stay on for a little bit longer. Natasha, was there anything you wanted just to bring out from your group to everybody?
No, I think I said, you know, it can be all done online. So that's the key to remember. The other key that I did just say was that the money gets paid into their savings account. So it is making sure that the young person is aware that it is not, you know, they get paid for each step, that they're going to get that £150. It gets paid into their savings accounts. And when they turn 18, that obviously they can have that money. But as I did say, was that they need to have taken control of their account before hopefully their 18th birthday, because what will happen is that they seem to think that on their 18th birthday this account magically appears. It does not. It is a process. So there is forms that they will need to fill out. They will come to us. We will write back to them if we know where their account is and their account information. They will then need to get in touch with their provider, and then the provider will ask them for the information that they require. So it is bearing that in mind, and that can take anywhere up to a couple of months to complete. So it's very, very important that a young person knows on their 18th birthday, this account isn't just suddenly going to fall from the sky and appear, that there is a process. We do write to them at the Share Foundation to let them know, but it's just making sure that they are aware of that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Natasha. Okay, we have a question from Helena. What do you do if you cannot find their account? Not very often that we can't find an account, because we have access to a company called the Tracing Group. Apologies if this was covered in the rooms, but the Tracing Group has a list of over 60% of all child trust funds that have been opened in the UK. So they're our first port of call, because they will tell us where the account currently resides. So in 60% of cases, we get an instant match. For those 40% that aren't currently listed with the Tracing Group, then we get the young person to sign a subject access request for HMRC, which we then send off to HMRC, and HMRC will go back to the young person and say, this is where your account was opened, and they will come back to us and say, this is where your account was opened. We will then promptly send another missive to the young person saying, they've told you where it's opened, this is what you need to do to access the account. So it's a very small number that we cannot find. Right, so another question from Rosie. Can those with a CTF and someone with parental responsibility do this, as TSF don't manage to do any admin for the account? No, to the person with parental responsibility. They can't do it through our system. If a young person is over 16, they can do it themselves via TSF. If the young person is under 16, then the person with parental responsibility has to go to the child, go to HMRC and ask the question. But parental responsibility does not include foster parent. Foster parents will not be told the answers, unfortunately, by HMRC. Okay, does that answer the question for you, Rosie? I'm hoping it does. Okay, Catherine, was there anything you wanted to bring out from your group discussion?
No, just as say, you know, sometimes questions don't come immediately. So if you do have any questions about the, you know, financial education and anything that we've covered today, our email addresses are our names, natasha.richmond@sharefound.org or catherine.caswell@sharefound.org, and drop Natasha or I an email and we can do our very best to answer them if something comes up, you know, after this meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, as I said, we will hang around now until everybody has left the meeting. you do have my permission now to use the end button. So if you wish to leave, then fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for attending. Hope to see you at one of our other seminars. And in the meantime, we'll hang around and answer any other questions that there may be. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Anthony,
much.
is there any chance you could email this to me, because a couple of my colleagues weren't able to attend?
The
They'll
recording
call up.
will probably be too big to be emailed, but I'll see what I can do.
Or just a link to it or anything. That's okay.
If we put it on Dropbox or something like that, I can send you the link.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Let me make a note of it, otherwise it won't happen. And if you haven't heard from me in a couple of days, please feel free to remind me.
I think that was something Helena asked as well about the recording.
Was it Helena? Okay. Requested recording. Fantastic. Okay. That's it. Are there any other questions for any of us? Helena. Oh, a round of applause from Helena. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
I know it's not aimed at me because I talk too much. It's aimed at Natasha and Catherine. So well done, ladies. Thank you. Anything else from anybody? Nope. Okay. Well, we'll all sit and stare at the screen till you've all gone then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Well done. What do you
You're
think?
muted.
You're muted.
Do we now stop the recording?
Yeah.